Is the human larynx proof that humans weren't designed?
No, the larynx is where it is because we're designed to talk.
Famous scientist Richard Dawkins claims that the human eye is poorly designed.
If I said you have eagle eyes, what would I mean?
Well, I would assume you'd mean I have really good vision. I'm seeing a lot of things.
Exactly. Guess what? They have the same eye design as we have. There's something seriously wrong with Richard Dawkins' argument. This is what the evolutionists have to believe, that the eye evolved at least 40 different times independently. Man, I don't have enough faith to believe that.
Why do some scientists claim they see poor design in nature?
Well, they're trying to argue against God. I don't believe God is imperfect. I don't believe he would create imperfect things, and there's no evidence of bad design. They haven't demonstrated that, and they certainly haven't demonstrated how any of these things could have evolved.
Atheists claim that living things have features that are poorly designed. But are they? Today we'll be exploring this question with Dr. Don Batten, who is a PhD scientist in biology. Now, Don, probably the most prolific claim that we see is that the vertebrate eye is badly designed. Give us an overview of that.
Yeah, well, that's Richard Dawkins, is the most famous one for claiming that. And what's the basis of that claim? Well, see, he says, well, the octopus eye is designed in a certain way, and it's fairly simple in a sense of it has a retina to receive the light signals, and behind the retina, away from the light, you have blood vessels and nerves. The vertebrate eye, like ours, has the blood vessels and the nerves in front of the retina. So the light travels through the blood vessels and nerves to the retina. And Dawkins says that's bad design, because who would design an eye like that where the light has to travel through the blood vessels and the nerves to get to the light sensors? So he says that's bad design. And it's actually called the inverted retina. It's because it's inverted compared to the octopus. So the octopus is supposed to be superbly designed, ours is supposed to be badly designed.
Well, this seems like a fairly reasonable claim at this point. To me, that seems a little bit silly, but I'm sure there's a good explanation for this. So why is that argument wrong?
Well, a very simple approach to this is to say, well, if I said you have eagle eyes, what would I mean?
Well, I would assume you'd mean I have really good vision. I'm seeing a lot of things.
Exactly. So eagles hover up there at quite a height and they pick out a mouse on the ground. They've got really good perception, really good acute vision. And guess what? They have the same eye design as we have.
Right.
So there's not much wrong with the vertebrate eye, is there? If eagles have such good vision, there's something seriously wrong with Richard Dawkins' argument.
So are there reasons for having the inverted retina as such, as opposed to having just the octopus sort of eye?
Yes, indeed. In fact, octopus lives under the water. So first of all, the light intensity is much less than for our eyes.
Yeah.
The octopus only has one sensor in its eyes. We have two. We actually have four, because we have the cones can see three different colours.
Okay.
Blue, green and red. So we can see a full colour spectrum.
Right, yeah.
So the light intensity our eyes are exposed to is much higher.
So we see a lot more light than they do deep in the ocean.
So our retina is much more active than a retina of an octopus. So you start to see there's some serious differences in the design of the eye. And also, of course, we can see full colour, whereas the octopus can't. So is the eye superior for the octopus? Well, hardly. The interesting thing is they think that the octopus makes use of colour in the sense of it uses the different refraction of different colours that focuses differently on their retina, and so they actually can make use of the colour, although they can't actually see it. It's quite an interesting
So they
idea.
can sense colour, but they can't actually see colour.
Well, they make use of the colour in a sense of distinguishing between different things because of the different focus. You know, you pass colour light through a prism, it'll separate out into the different colours.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that sort of process happens, they think, in their eye, so it separates the colours, and so they focus at different positions on the retina, and that enables them to use the information of the colour without actually seeing it.
Oh, right.
But we can actually see colour. They can't see colour.
So do evolutionists have an explanation for the two different eye designs?
Well, this is the interesting thing. The argument of bad design is really a smokescreen for the inability to explain any evolutionary story which might explain the so-called inverted retina, the vertebrate retina, our retina. Now, they've got a story about the retina that an octopus has.
All right. So what is that?
So the idea is, well, there's a light-sensitive patch developed on the skin.
Okay.
Darwin actually thought of this sort of simple idea, and then it became a cup. So it sort of dropped down in the middle and became a cup, and so it sort of acted like a bit of a focus thing. Mm-hmm. And then you have the nerves and the blood cells underneath, blood vessels underneath this retina that's developing on the skin, and so this is the development of this simple eye idea. Okay. But flip that around and think about a retina with the blood vessels on the top of it and the nerves on top of it. How could that evolve?
That doesn't seem to make sense at all. So
there's no light-sensitive patch idea with nerves on the top and blood vessels on the top of it, and that's the skin.
Because that wouldn't make sense for it to start evolving there anyway. It would probably try and be picking the most optimal spot.
Yeah. So they've got this sort of just so story about how octopus-type eye could supposedly evolve, but there's no story, not even a reasonable story about how a retina or an eye like our eye could evolve. So this argument about bad design is really a smokescreen for the fact they have no idea how it could evolve.
Oh, right. And so if we have two different eye designs, is there any sort of explanation in there for maybe having a common ancestor or anything?
Well, this is a big problem because there's at least 40 different eye designs that have been recognised.
40?
40. So
we've just been talking about two.
We've just been talking about two.
38 more.
That's right, 38 more. So think about insects and crayfish and all sorts of different eye designs. And the lobster has this reflective things, and they've inspired things to focus X-rays and things, but that's another story. But there's at least 40 different eye designs, and they can't be explained by having a common ancestor. You can't even think of two of them that could have a common ancestor that had that eye design. That's where it came from. So they have to. This is what the evolutionists have to believe, that the eye evolved at least 40 different times independently. Now, evolving once, any eye, is a tall order. But to have it happen 40 different times independently, man, I don't have enough faith to believe that.
We'll get back to the interview in just a second, but first, I'd like to thank you for watching these videos. And if you aren't subscribed, please subscribe and ring that notification bell, as it helps us create more content like this. Let's get back to the interview. So it seems then that these people are making arguments from probably a bit of ignorance or a lack of understanding of the vertebrae eye.
That's the case. Dr. Peter Gurney is an ophthalmologist. So an ophthalmologist is an eye expert.
I would trust his take on this.
Right. That's if you have cataracts, you go to an ophthalmologist to get them fixed, that sort of thing. So Dr. Peter Gurney has pointed out why the vertebrate eye is designed the way it is, because he understands that. And one of the interesting things is, you sort of touched upon, well, it doesn't seem reasonable to have the blood vessels and the nerves in front of the retina, so the light has to go through them. But here's the thing. There's things called Mueller cells, and they're like fibre optics. In fact, they are fibre optics, and they take the light from in front of the nerves and the blood vessels through them to the retina. And these fibre optic tubes, these Mueller cells, when you listen to earbuds and you've got automatic noise cancelling, or headphones and you have automatic noise cancelling, these Mueller cells actually clean up the light signals and they reduce the noise.
Before they get to your retina?
Before they get to the retina.
So, in fact, these Mueller cells are making the image more clear, rather than supposedly if I had, blood vessels over my eyes making my vision patchy. It's actually clearer than it was initially.
It's actually clearer than it would be. That's right. So these Mueller cells are amazing. So you just think if you're going to evolve this vertebrate eye, the inverted retina so-called, you have to have the Mueller cells there right from the start. Otherwise you can't see.
Yeah, and that just makes you absolute prey for some kind of predator that has eyes that work.
End of story. So you have to have these Mueller cells there right from the start. And that's another problem with the evolutionary story, because you can't just have a retina with light-sensitive cells. That's a big call, but you need to have the Mueller cells there as well. It has to all come at the same time. It's impossible for the evolutionary story.
Right. So this argument seems fairly clear-cut that these eyes had to have existed initially without changing at all, having all these things working together for them to actually be functional. And in fact, that an inverted retina is more functional than the eyes of an octopus, despite the argument otherwise.
Exactly. We can see much better than an octopus. And in fact, the vertebrate design is superior. But the octopus eye is quite functional and does the job for the octopus.
Okay, so if we move on to another question then, so there's plenty of arguments for this. Another semi-prominent one is the prostate. That is badly designed. Why is this an argument?
Well, what is a prostate? It's only in men and males, and the prostate is a gland that's just at the base of the bladder, which surrounds the urethra, and it contributes about 20% of the volume of semen, so it's very important for reproduction. And the prostate is where it is because it has to do that job. So the problem is that as people get older, as men get older, some men get a swollen prostate, and when it swells, it tends to sort of constrict the urethra, and then they have trouble peeing.
Right, and peeing is an essential part of living.
I think so, yes.
So that obviously sounds bad. So why would this not be an example of bad design then?
Well, it's a pathological thing. So young men don't get it.
Yeah.
So it's old men. It's men over 80, about half men over 80 in the Western countries like United States and Australia, about a half get this enlargement of the prostate. But only about a quarter have any trouble peeing. So it's a minority problem even for old men. But it's a problem, of course, if you've got it. But so it's a pathological thing. It's not a design problem.
Right. And so if it's a pathological thing, do we know what causes it at all?
Well, there's a hint about this, because if you look at different countries, like if you go to Japan, there's much less problem in Japan than there is in the United States or Australia or England.
Okay. So is this sort of boiling down to a bit more of a lifestyle thing then?
Well, you say, well, it's either genetics or lifestyle, so how can we tell? Well, we could take a Japanese man and put him in America and he becomes an American. He has the same problems as other people who live in America.
Oh, right. Okay. So
it's not genetics.
Okay.
So what is it? It's the diet and lifestyle.
Okay.
So what is it about Japan which is different to America? Well, the Japanese eat a lot of oily fish, like salmon, for example.
Yep, in sushi. Love that.
And sushi and sashimi, raw fish. And also they eat tofu. What's the significance of tofu? Well, it has an effect of suppressing excessive male hormone production. And male hormone production is thought to be involved in the growth of the prostate, this enlargement of the prostate. So in other words, in fact, it's been shown through research that a diet low in vegetables, you get 4 times the rate of this enlargement of the prostate.
Right.
In other words, if people ate enough vegetables in the West, in America and Australia, there'd be a quarter the amount of prostate problems.
And then even if you quarter that again with the amount of people that have prostate problems, and actually
it would be a very minor problem even in older men.
Right. And so we sort of have this down to, this isn't actually a design problem.
No,
this
it's not a design problem.
A lifestyle problem that we have prominently in the West.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, so addressing another myth then, this one is about the larynx or the voice box. There's an argument that if the larynx was placed further down in the neck, away from the air pipe and the food pipe, that the chance of choking would significantly decrease. Can you address this for us?
Well, yes, the argument is that if it was rearranged, the arrangement of the the food pipe, the esophagus, and the windpipe, the trachea, and the voice box, the larynx, if it was all rearranged, there'd be less likelihood of choking. So this is the argument. So therefore it's badly designed. But here's the thing, we can speak. And the reason we can speak is because the larynx is where it is.
That's a good upside.
So if you put the larynx in a different spot and we wouldn't be able to speak, okay, you might get less chance of choking, but you wouldn't be able to talk. That'd be great, wouldn't it? So it's really a non-argument. And really, we've got a choking reflex or a coughing reflex if we do choke. I mean, if you've ever swallowed something the wrong way, I mean, immediately you start coughing to bring it out. You know? So we've got this amazing coughing reflex to get rid of stuff that does go the wrong way, which happens occasionally. It's very rare that anybody dies of choking. And usually actually it's connected with other pathologies. You know, people are on drugs, for example, and it suppresses their coughing reflex and that sort of thing. Or people choke on their vomit and things like that. So the actual, the coughing reflex is very effective, providing it's not inhibited by pathology or drugs and things like that. And so it's very rare that anybody dies of choking anyway.
Okay, so we've talked about a larynx, we've talked about eyesight, we've talked about prostate. We're going to talk about the back now. Apparently that is badly designed. Back. Oh, I'm sure you'd know all about it, Don. But how are backs badly designed, supposedly?
So this goes back to the whole evolution story again. You know, we came from the apes, you see, and apes have sort of got this curvature of their spine like this, and walking on all fours. And then look at humans, and we're upright, and we've got this lordosis, which is the curvature of the back. You know, the S shape in the back. And the evolutionists said, "Oh, look, that's bad. You know, we should be like the apes because they don't have back problems."
All right. Okay. I have this thought because. As much as there could be the thought that we came from apes, I don't walk on my all fours. I stand upright. Exactly.
You stand upright. And a physiotherapist, or the Americans call them physical therapists in New Zealand, Dr. Robin McKenzie, his name is, he developed these exercises which take into account the lordosis is actually meant to be there, the curvature of the spine, this S shape, is meant to be there. It's actually what it ought to be. And the problem is, the abdominal muscles and the muscles that actually support the back are in bad form, and he developed exercises to improve the tone of those muscles, and guess what? Fixed up the back problems. If you go to tribal people that don't sit around at desks working on computers all day and things like that, back problems are very unusual, very rare. So it's very much a product of a sedentary lifestyle, the sort of things that we do, sitting here, we're not running around. And it's a sedentary lifestyle which results in poor muscle tone, particularly in the abdomen and around the back, the lower back. And this results in the back being poorly supported, and then you end up with back problems.
All right. So again, it's a pathological kind of thing.
It's a pathological thing. It can be an age thing, or although I have to say I had more problems with my back as a young person than I do now, probably because I'm more aware of the fact I need to be exercising and keeping things in tone.
You've done the inverse of most people. So supporting your abdominal muscles will actually, in long term, probably help you with any kind of back problems.
Exactly, because your back's being supported the way it should be, the way it's designed to be, and you don't end up with the back problems. Of course, you've still got pathological things, like people can get osteoporosis, for example, which is an old age thing, part of the fact we live in a fallen world, which is no longer perfect like it was in the beginning when God created everything. And so these pathological things can actually cause back troubles where you get compressed discs and the lack of strength in the vertebra because of osteoporosis, collapse of the vertebra. These sorts of things cause incredible back pain, but that's a pathological thing. It's not actually caused by bad design of the back.
If you're enjoying this interview so far, you might be interested to know that we also produce the world's most widely read magazine on the creation-evolution debate, Creation Magazine. It's packed with beautifully illustrated articles showing how real science supports the Bible. It's designed for the whole family and is a great tool for strengthening your faith. Sign up now to receive 4 issues per year. Follow the link in the description. All right, well, if we move on down the body then and tackle yet another claim, are knees badly designed?
So the argument goes that because some people rupture their ligaments in their knee, particularly the cruciate ligament, the anterior cruciate ligament, therefore the knee is badly designed. And if you follow a football team, you probably have a favourite footballer who's ruptured his ACL and been out of action for 6 months, and, well, the knee must be badly designed. This is the argument. But again, when you look at the human knee, it's actually quite unique. There's in the ligaments, these cruciate ligaments, this is a little model of the actual thing, and the model doesn't do justice to it. But here you have, if this is the front here, this is the anterior cruciate ligament and the posterior cruciate ligament. And they're called cruciate because they cross over. You can see the cross. Here's the bottom of the femur, the top, the big bone at the top, and here's the tibia underneath. Right, this is the red represents the bottom of the femur and the top of the tibia. And the cruciate ligaments cross over in the middle of the knee. And they allow this amazing movement of the knee. So you can bend your leg and back to, well, that's at 90 degrees. Actually, you can go all the way back because it rotates on the surfaces, and you can go back almost 180 degrees movement on your leg from standing upright to pulling your foot up behind your backside. So the ligaments allow that to happen. One of the reasons why the cruciate ligament tear is so devastating is because without it, the femur will actually roll off the front of the tibia, or with the posterior one off the back, and with the lateral ones needs to be held together on the side. So here's the thing, the knee would not operate without all 4 ligaments operating at the same time.
So if I had 2, I could use my knee one direction, but they'd be falling off each which way.
Fall off the other way. That's right. All 4 have to operate. And Dr. Stuart Burgess, who is a design engineer, Professor Stuart Burgess, has written about this on creation.com. There's a whole article about the knee and how it's irreducibly complex. In fact, that's a huge problem for the evolutionary story. So here's the thing. How many people actually rupture their cruciate ligament? Very few.
Right. So who are the people who are rupturing?
People who overstress their knee. The knee was never designed for the sort of stresses that footballers put it to. That's why it happens. Or skiers. Skiers also do it.
So if I'm heavily using a joint and putting constant stress and pressure on
not just constant, it's actually excessive stress, far beyond what it was ever designed to take. The knee was never designed to take the stresses of someone having a great prang on a ski field, or having 3 huge guys tackle him on the rugby field and smash him up. It wasn't designed for that. Normal use, it doesn't happen. So there's nothing wrong with the design of the knee, and the design of the knee is such that it could never evolve because you could never get those 4 ligaments all at the same time, which hold it all together and stabilise the knee. It's an amazing design. Now, I did injure my knee. I was actually over 70 when I did it. I never injured my knee in my life, but I injured it how? Skiing.
Excessive force.
Excessive force. Thankfully, it wasn't the cruciate ligament. Otherwise, I would have been out of action. It was just a tear of the medial cruciate ligament, not cruciate, the medial lateral ligament, the one on the side, which is not quite as important as the cruciate ligaments. But I was out of action for probably a couple of months while this thing healed. And here's the thing too, it does heal. And so we are designed and created that if we do get some minor damage, it heals itself. Where the footballers come unstuck is they do come unstuck. The actual ligament separates from the bone, and then it doesn't heal. That's really catastrophic, and that's why they take so long to get well. But there's nothing wrong with the design of the knee, and it's a huge problem for the evolutionary story to explain the origin of such a knee as a human has, with all these ligaments that hold it all together, and it's just amazing.
So the idea of this being a suboptimal design is quite fallacious, actually. It's actually very well designed. It's just when we put it under excessive force that, this great design actually can come apart.
Yeah, well, it's like saying, if an engineer builds a bridge and it's built to take 500 cars, right?
Right.
And they put 3,000 cars on the bridge and the bridge collapses, and you say the bridge was badly designed. It's that sort of argument. It doesn't make any sense. It's overstressing, stressing it beyond what it was designed to do. And this normal design doesn't have any problems when you use it normally. It's only when you overstress it.
So, Don, are there things that we see today in living things that might appear suboptimal but might not actually be bad design?
Well, there are reasons, developmental reasons and engineering reasons, if you like, why things might not be, we think, better. Take, for example, eggshells for birds. So you might say, well, a thicker eggshell would mean that there'd be fewer eggs that were broken in the process of incubating the eggs. But if you have a thicker shell, then less oxygen gets through and then the embryo inside the shell dies. So the shell can only be a certain thickness to allow enough oxygen through. So there's a design constraint.
Right.
And similarly, if you think of a knee with the ligaments, I mean, you say, well, the ligaments should be bigger and stronger so that footballers never injure themselves. Well, if you have a big, thick ligament inside the knee, then the knee's going to have restricted movement.
Right. You can't probably run as fast.
That's right. You won't be able to bend your knee as far and things like that. The larynx, we've mentioned this, that if you put the larynx in a different spot, we wouldn't be able to talk. So it might solve one problem, but you end up not being able to talk. So there are design constraints on what's possible. You also have, in living in today's world, we live in a fallen world. Originally, everything was very good. When God finished creating everything, he said it was very good, and there wouldn't have been any disease or osteoporosis or any of these sort of degenerative things that we see today. But today we see these things because we live in a fallen world. Since sin entered into the world, God withdrew some of his sustaining power. We see things falling apart. And so we live in this sort of world today where we have pathology, we have things falling apart, we get old, we get decrepit, and these sorts of things are a factor in supposed bad design, but they're not actually bad design.
So, Don, then it seems that the idea or argument for bad design is actually just a bad argument.
Yes, in fact, it's a theological argument. So the argument really goes like this. Well, you Christians believe in the perfect God who would not create imperfect designs. This design is imperfect, therefore God didn't create it, therefore it must have evolved.
All right, I'm seeing a problem here because there needs to be a designer for there to be a bad design.
Yes, I mean, the argument falls apart at several points. One is, if there's bad design, you would say, well, there must be a bad designer. If you owned a bomb car,
it would be badly designed.
You wouldn't say it wasn't designed. You just say it's badly designed, and that might reflect on the designer. But of course, we don't believe that God is a less than perfect designer, and there's none of these supposed evidences or examples of bad design stack up when you look at them. They are all optimally designed. Now, of course, we live in a fallen world, so we live in a world of pathology where things go wrong and that sort of thing, but that's not a design problem. That's actually a decay problem because of sin, because we live in a fallen world. But here's the thing. Although we live in a fallen world, we see amazing evidence of design still. The things we've talked about today are amazing. The design of the knee, the design of the eye. I mean, the eye is mind-boggling. You just dive into it a little bit, you just see how amazing it is. We look at today's world and we see amazing evidence of design. It's like in Romans chapter 1, verse 20, talks about the things that have been created, speak about the Creator. And we see this in spades in even these things which are claimed to be bad design.
Well, Don, I have found this conversation amazingly interesting, especially when you talked about the eye and how there are Mueller cells that actually make our vision clearer despite having blood vessels in front of our retina. I think that really just highlights how there has to sort of be some kind of divine creator out there coming up with these really brilliant ideas that even stump us until we look a little deeper. Well, Don, I've heard that there is a resource that you can direct us to, a book that has all sorts of answers to questions. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes. Here's the book, By Design. It's a fantastic book, fresh, new. Dr. Jonathan Sarfaty's put together so many examples of design. It talks about supposed bad design. It talks about how design in living things has inspired engineers to actually create. And the book is just chock-a-block full of interesting items like that about God's designs in today's world that we can see. Highly recommended. You can get that from creation.com store worldwide.
Well, Don, thank you for all your insight and all your time tonight.
You're welcome, James. It's been a great conversation.